Hey guys, what's up? Murphy's Opinions here, and today I'm coming at you with another James Bond review. And today we'll be looking at 1964's Goldfinger, which is directed by Guy Hamilton. And it's basically the plot of the film is James Bond has to stop billionaire Auric Goldfinger, who is planning to destroy Fort Knox, which will increase the value of his own gold and make him even richer. So that's basically the short plot summary of the film, and it's honestly a really great film. It's definitely one of my favourite in the series. Definitely would make the top five. Let's just go through quickly, kind of the cast, and we'll break down everything from there. So, obviously, you got Sean Connery as James Bond once again, and I've got to say, easily his best performance. Well, not easily, but definitely his best, I think. He was great in Dr. No and From Russia with Love, and I think he's very good here. I think he's so, you could just tell he's having so much fun in the role. He's cool, he's calm, he's collected, he's smooth. He's just everything that epitomizes James Bond, especially Sean Connery's take on Bond. And yeah, I think after this, his performances. Well, actually, his performance in Thunderball I think was good, but after that, he really did start to kind of get progressively worse in terms of his performances as James Bond. But we'll talk about that in future reviews. But I think he's really great in this film, and despite a lot of people make the complaint about how in this film James Bond doesn't actually do that much, considering the fact that he's for a lot of the second half of the film he's just caught in prison on the by Goldfinger, which is true. However, he's still, I feel, the main. The thing is, I often find with even if there's a film where the main character doesn't necessarily do that much, they still have to be likable and just possess traits that the audience like, and he does this here. I think he just comes across as such an awesome. Every guy wants to be him, every woman wants to be with him, that sort of thing. I think he's just great in this film. And then we've got the Bond girl, Pussy Galore, played by Honor Blackman. She's definitely one of my favourites. She's one of those kind of early, independent, kind of strong women in Bond films. She's just great. It is a bit like, especially in this modern day society, it's a bit weird to kind of see how Bond turns to the good side. It's kind of elements of rape, which is a bit odd, but in the 60s, I think no one would have really, looked into it in that way. But obviously, it's a different society now, a lot more liberal, and yeah, it's just sort of, it's a bit weird to look at now. But still, I think she's great in this film. The name is hilarious, and it's what I like about this is they kind of address the elephant in the room with the name being ridiculous, and you have Bond being like, "Oh, I must be dreaming." So I kind of like they address it. They don't just kind of make it have a ridiculous name and then Bond just kind of be like, "Meh." He actually kind of reacts to it, which is interesting. And I think she's great in the film. And then you've got Gert Frobe as Goldfinger, easily one of the best villains. He's the classic kind of villain with a plan. He's clearly planned this out to a T, and he's even got backup plans. And he's someone who's just he's like, I often find with Bond villains, they need to be a threat to Bond in some sort of way. I think they either need to be a physical threat, or they need to be a mental threat, or they have someone who at their disposal who's a threat. And Goldfinger's someone who's a mental threat because his plan, I feel, is just enormous, and it could really, it's an evil scheme. And also, we're going to talk about him in a minute. His henchman Oddjob, I think, is also a huge threat. He's just hard as nails. We've got Shirley Eaton as Jill Matheson. She's obviously the woman who gets painted in gold, and that's an iconic moment in movie history where Bond comes back after being knocked out, and she's just covered in gold, and she dies after, and then they cover her in gold after that. And I think just an iconic scene. She doesn't necessarily do that much, but for what the role that she does have in the film, I think she's great. I think she's a Bond. I think she was someone who's standard kind of Bond, like girl that sleeps with Bond, but she's still likable, and yeah. Anyway, we've got Harold Sakata as Oddjob. Definitely one of the best henchmen in the series. He's that classic, doesn't really speak, but he's just very, very tough. A match for Bond, definitely. And his death scene, I think, is very iconic as well, with him getting like electrocuted. And he's just a villain who is associated with Bond. Whenever you think of like henchmen, you often think of like Oddjob or Jaws or someone like that. And I think he's great, and he really works in this film. You've got Tanya Malay as Tilly Matheson, who's the sister of Jill in the film, and she's obviously avenging her death. I kind of like how they went about doing this, like, you know, Bond. It wasn't just Bond going in there and like sorting out Goldfinger. There were other people as well who wanted to sort of get their hands on Goldfinger, and I like this kind of aspect of, you know, Bond, Bond's plot tying in with other people's. And for what she is, she's quite likable. As well, she's not like, but she's, you know, I think she's played very well. I mean, you do kind of feel sad when she dies in the film, and you feel like kind of you wanted to see her get her revenge for the death of her sister. And I think she's for the role she has, it's not necessarily that big. I think she does well with it. And then you've obviously got the standard MI6 regulars. So you've got Bernard Lee as M. Once again, he's great in the role. Commands such a presence. Does a lot with the role of just telling Bond his orders. And he's great once again in this film. Desmond Llewellyn as Q. And this is where we really start to see the development of the Bond and Q relationship, and just the Q character in general. I think Desmond Llewellyn gives a great performance here, and this was yet to be his best performance, but it's definitely a great one. I think Desmond Llewellyn was someone who, as the series went on, really just got better and better as Q, and the character develops really well, and this is a great starting point, I feel. And then you've got Cesc Linder as Felix Leiter. Definitely one of the better Felix Leiter performances. I often find the Felix Leiter character can be quite boring, because he doesn't really do much. He's just sort of like, oh, hi, Bond, and that's about it, really. And then he tells Bond what he knows, and that's about it. But he's actually quite likeable. He is assisting Bond in a way, and we actually get to see a bit of a relationship between Bond and Felix, whereas a lot of the time it was just kind of like, oh, hi, Felix, oh, hi, Bond, you know, that sort of thing. So I think Cesc Linder does a good job with what he's given. He's definitely one of the better Felix Leiters. Not the best, but I definitely think one of them, definitely. The score was done by John Barry once again, and I definitely think it's one of the best scores in the series. I think it's a very good one, and I think it got to #1, I think, in the Billboard charts, if I'm not mistaken. You know, obviously you've got the classic Goldfinger song, which I do really like, but I personally wouldn't put it, say, in my top 10 favourite Bond songs. But I do think it's a very good song. And the soundtrack in general is just really great. You know, the Bond theme plays when needed. And once again, John Barry delivers a solid score, in my opinion. So just look at some of the best kind of scenes in the film. I'd say the car chase in the DB5, just great stuff. That Aston Martin DB5 is such an iconic car in the series. It's just awesome. That chase with the ejector seat as well. Just a great scene in general. One of the most memorable ones. Then you've got the laser scene as well. This is an iconic one. You know, the scene where Bond's like, "Do you expect me to talk?" And Goldfinger's like, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." That's a great scene. Very iconic. And the way it's delivered as well is fantastic. And I would say that's probably Connery's best bit of acting in the film. He just looks very... He managed to showcase a lot of kind of panic, but not looking weak, if that makes sense. You can tell he's trying to work out how he can try and escape, and he's somewhat panicking, but he's not kind of getting too intimidated, which I really do love that scene. I think it might be my favourite scene in the film. You've got this scene with the interrogation of Fort Knox as well, where Goldfinger's plan is put into place. I think it's great. Actually, it's funny how Goldfinger makes a deal with the Chinese to help eliminate Fort Knox. And it's funny, like, when Goldfinger's plan starts to go out the window, he like puts on the outfit of the people, like the guards in Fort Knox, and he kills loads of the Chinese, which I think was quite funny. And you've got the Bond and Oddjob fight, which I said before is really great. Oddjob meeting his demise by picking up his hat on the electric bars, which I think was again one of the most iconic henchman deaths, and just the plane fight as well between Bond and Goldfinger's death, which is kind of over the top, but I think it's a lot of fun, and it's just a really great death as well, I think, for Goldfinger. So overall, Goldfinger is a fantastic film, easily one of my favourites. Not much I can really fault with it aside from a few poor editing things, but that was because of the time it was done, and that's about it really. So hope you guys liked my review of Goldfinger. My next review will be of Thunderball. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to my main channel, follow me on Twitter and Ask.fm, which are on my main channel, and thanks for watching, guys.